topic natin. The topic is data
Ito.
objects, attributes, and basic statistical description. Sige,
Sige.
next slide.
Data objects to. Ako mabasa. Data objects. Definition and description. A data object is a collection of one or more data points that create meaning as a whole. In other words, data object is an alternate way of saying this group of data should be thought of as standalone. The most common example of data object is a data table, but others include arrays, pointers, records, file sets, and scalar types. Values in a data object may have their own unique IDs, data types, and attributes. In this way, data objects vary across database structures in different programming languages. An easy way to think about the term data object is that it reflects the simple need for compartmentalizing information in a database that otherwise look big and confusing. I think anong pinaka-example nito na palagi natin nakikita, siyempre may laptop tayo lahat. Di ba may laptop tayo? Pag
Oo.
pag na-screenshot tayo, 'di ba, kung ano numbers ang nalabas dun, hindi parang may something na pangalan or ano, parang specific, 'di ba may kung anong number nalabas dun. Yun ang I think pinaka ano,
Oo.
everyday na nakikita natin na data object. Yun, yung mga nakasulat dun sa ano, print screen baga
Oo.
natin. Yun, isa na nga yun. Yan. Tingnan natin ang sunod.
Okay.
Data objects. In
Yung kahit
addition,
ano na
alin?
ini-store sa
Ah,
data objects. In addition to compartmentalizing, data analysts use unique IDs, data types, and attributes to make data even easier to understand. These data objects are almost always represented in data models, in which show relationship between data objects. As a list, data objects consist of values, the data itself, unique IDs, one data point that identifies the others related to it, attributes, additional data within one unique ID, data types, classifications of data, such as text, numeric, and Boolean.
naka-encounter man ako nito since naglalaro
Halimbawa,
baga ako. Naka-encounter ako nito. Pag pumunta ka sa files ng games mo, tas may data doon, makita mo doon mga kung anong
oh,
mga nakasulat. May pangalan, parang sabihin natin ay itong baril na ito sa laro, ang pangalan ay let's say ano na basta may specific name siya dun sa laro. Pero pagdating mo dun sa data, dun sa files niya, dun sa data files niya, makikita mo iba yung pangalan niya. Parang nakalagay dun. Kung machine gun siya dun
oh,
sa in-game, nakalagay dun sa ano niya, generic machine gun number 1. Parang ganun. I think yan yung ano, yan yung I think na data objects nga doon. May value nga, may unique IDs, may
oh,
attributes, saka yun nga, may data types. Yun. Siya na nga yun.
yeah,
Ang
next.
sunod. Examples of data objects in databases. Imagine you're an e-commerce company that sells watches to retailers. Your company is called Batch Watch, and its key units are vendors, products, and customers. Over time, you've built a complex database with a large amount of data. As a raw database, your data looks like an enormous table. It's nearly impossible to conceptualize or extract insights from the data in that format. Instead, you hire an external consultant to build a data model that helps you understand what's in your data model. You guessed it. You guessed it. Data objects. These data objects are subsets of your huge database. For example, while the huge database contains vendor, product, and customer data, a data object might only contain vendor data. Another contains product data and still another custom data. Pwede man palang hiwa-hiwalay ang ano niya,
Oh,
pangalan. Ayos man. Sige, sunod tayo. Types of data objects. You know,
in databases. Types
tingnan mo.
of data objects in databases. We talked exclusively about data tables up to this point, but they are not the only type of data object. Here's a list of additional data objects that analysts encounter while working in databases. Sama dito yung arrays, pointers, record, files, sets, and scalar types.
Ano scalar types? Hindi ko daw yan alam. Wait lang. Check ko nga kung ano yan.
Oh,
Scalar types. Check ko lang kung saglit ko ano yan.
meron man dyan yan. May mga meaning yan. Next slide tayo.
Ah, Something that has a finite set of possible values. Okay, gets. Okay, gets mo ba na? Okay, okay, okay.
Oh, meron.
Pag
Sige,
hindi na,
aray.
ano, okay. Okay, okay. Gets.
Aray style.
Oo, okay lang pala. Yung pala ang di ano.
Oo,
Sige daw. Ano tayo, balik tayo doon
sige.
sa pinag-aaralan. Ang sunod ay arrays. Ay, ito
Aray.
naman pala. Arrays are data objects that have only one dimension. You can think of them as a single column in a data table. Unless use arrays when their data is not thorough enough to merit a table. Okay. Array nga. Records.
Or na.
Records are data
Data object.
objects that contain one data entry for each dimension in the data table. You can think of a data records as a single row in the data table. Analysts use records anytime they enter an observation which usually have values for each dimension table. Okay? Sige daw, ikaw. Pointers.
Pointer. A data object pointer is a special data value that indicates the memory location of another data point or group of data points. In most cases, a pointer is included within a table column as a separate dimension
Separate EU. Nandun the files. Sige daw.
file.
Da-
Data object
data
file
objects. O sige, ikaw na.
use code to enter other data objects use write structure. While they're not executable like the other data object files are invaluable. They ensure data integrity by ensuring data entries take on the same format. An easy way to conceptualize files is that unlike other data objects, you cannot view them in simple database software like Excel.
Excel EU. Sets. Ato sets naman. Sets, data object sets combine multiple data objects and in most cases tables. In this way, data sets occupy a level of hierarchy between data tables and database. In common speak, analysts use the shortened term dataset to refer to object sets. In addition, this term has become a default term for all data objects. Scalar data object indicates a single value rather than an aggregation like data tables, arrays, and records. That said, the term scalar data takes on different meaning depending on the database, management system, or programming language. Okay? Sets. Conclusion. Sila? Anong conclusion natin?
A data object in most cases is the table or some derivative
Here.
thereof. This is what we refer to in the context of data tables. However, programming languages often have their own unique definitions. Because of programming languages and databases often work in unison, the diverging definitions can be confusing. Analysts depend on the context to tell the difference. In the end, data objects are nothing more than a collection of data. When you are a data analyst, you constantly need to compartmentalize. This provides structure and make data
Easy to
easy to
work
work
with.
with.
Ay, mangyari. Siya mangyari.
Yun lang, conclusion. Yun nga,
Hmm.
ano,
Data attribute style.
data
Data
object.
attribute definition description. In short, data attribute is a single value description for a data point or data object. It exists most often as a column in a data table but can also refer to a special formatting and functionality for objects in programming languages such as Python. Okay? Ito daw. Data
Gawa nito yung,
attributes.
ano, yan,
Alin? Ano yun? Ito nga. Ito na nga.
date. Yan, ano bang year, ano bang month,
Oo.
ano bang day, anong day ngayon, ganun.
Context. Often referred to as string. Oo, string
String.
mo niya.
Pag boolean, dalawa lang yan.
Yun
Pwedeng
ani.
true or
Yes or no, 0, 1 or 0. So, binary data. Oo.
false data.
Aggregated attribute versus single attributes. An important distinction is that the term attribute is used loosely in this context to mean both each individual cell and the entirety of the column. For example, you might say that France is an attribute of October in Dijon, or you may say a country is an attribute of a month in the city. The former is a case of single attributes, whereas the latter is a case of single aggregated attributes. Okay. Medyo na-gets ko yung ano, yung ginamit na ano, may ayos man. Sige daw. Attributes versus measures.
Attributes versus measure. Returning to our example of rainfall, we cannot consider rainfall as an attribute.
Oh,
This is because is that it does not have a fixed set of descriptors of the unique IDs. It's not categorical. Instead, it provides a numeric value that can be arithmetically manipulated with other roles. Rather than attributes, we refer to columns that provide numeric data as measures.
measures naman.
Okay, pag attribute, yan yung ano, kung anong meron sa isang data. Pag measure,
Numeric.
yung ano,
Oo.
gaano
Numeric.
kadami yung isang
Yung,
data.
oo.
Parang ganun.
Ayos ah. Rows as attributes. So far, we've discussed columns as attributes and measures, but what about rows? Can we somehow use unique IDs as attributes? The answer is yes. To understand this, we need to come back to the basic premise about attributes. They're nothing more than one piece of data that describes another. Okay. For example, imagine you want to know in which city 13 centimeter of rainfall came down in the US on the 24th day of a month. In this case, the attribute is the row value Houston, whereas the unique ID is 13 centimeter. 13 centimeter USA 24th day. What matters is our search criteria. Depending how you filter the data, a row can become an attribute in the column the unique ID. I see. Oo. Ganda yung example nila.
Oh,
Ang ano, ano to? Layman's term nilang masyado for the normies. Ang galing man. Criteria of
yeah,
data
next.
attributes usable in ano. Sige, ikaw na.
Criteria of data attributes usable in analytics. In order for data attribute to be valuable for big data analytics, it must meet the following criteria. The attribute must be present in more than one row or column or aggregate, unless it's one of in its field. For example, if one of our cities was in Germany, this would still be a country
Country
attribute.
attribute.
The
Yeah.
attribute value must be self-explanatory or have metadata description. The attribute must not be normalized to a unique ID if it's to be used as a descriptor for another unique ID. If not, the analysis may produce false associations.
Yeah. Dapat nga maayos ang pagkakaano. May criteria
Oh,
nga lang siya. Pag mali nga ang ano niya, pagkakagawa, magkakaroon niya ng false associations. Tapos din, ay, sosobrahan na. Statistical description of data. The basic statistical description of data help us measure some very special properties of the data. One of these properties is the central tendency. Measuring the central tendency helps us know where does most of the data lie, taking into account the whole set of data. Let's take a use case. Suppose that we have a set of value and we want to find a value that has the capability of replacing the whole data set and still achieve a relevant result. Finding the central tendency help us achieve this use case. Okay. Mean. Ito. Sige daw.
suppose that
Mathematics na
we have
tayo.
a dataset in which we have an attribute age of supposing 100 people. Let the corresponding ages be A1, A2, A3, and so on.
Oo.
The mean ages of these 100 people means the mean age of the people, which is equivalent to answering what age do most the people belong to. Mathematically, the mean of n values can be defined as along with the benefits of finding the mean of the data, there are some drawbacks. One of them is when there are some extreme values in the data. Let us take Okay, suppose that out of 100 people in a company, 95 have a salary of in the range 2 lakhs to 5 lakhs, but 5 people have age above 100 lakhs. In this case, the mean salary would be around 18 lakhs, 8 lakhs. But as we can see, most of the people have salaries between 2 lakhs and 5. So this result did have much significance and was not all useful. We cannot replace the whole dataset with the mean in this scenario. In such cases, we have another measure of central tendency, which is the median of the
Median
data.
data, which is, ito na yung median. When our dataset has skewness, data is symmetric, calculating the median could prove to be more beneficial than mean. Median is defined as the centermost value of an ordered numerical dataset. For calculating the median, it is important for the dataset to be in some order, i.e. it should be sorted. Let us take the same above case again. Out of 100 people in a company, 95 have a salary in the range of 2 lakhs to 5 lakhs, but 5 people have age above 100 lakhs. The median of this dataset will still lie between 2 lakhs and 5 lakhs. So we can see that the median of the dataset is not affected by extreme values in the dataset. Therefore, in such scenarios, the median of the data has more significance. Medyo research ko pa ito mamaya.
Medyo nasa gitna lang ito.
Oo nga. Ay, tingnan ko pang
Mode.
mamaya. Sige, mode.
This is another measure of central tendency. The mode for a set of data is the value that occurs most frequently in the hence it can be calculated both qualitative and quantitative attributes. There's an equal possibility that a data set might have two modes. Such data sets are known as bimodal. In general, a data, a data set with two or more modes is known as multimodal.
Multi-mode. Iya.
Yung mode, ito daw yung ano,
Alin?
madalas lumabas sa ano, data. Ito na yung last, mid-range. This is defined as the average of the largest and smallest values in the set of values.
Iyo, ano. Ah, ito, tapos mo na pala. Medyo,
Uh,
itong mga part na ito, titingnan ko pa kung, yung i-ano ko pa, di-deep dive ko pa. Medyo nahihirapan pa akong tawag dito, ano baga, i-comprehend pa. Pero yung iba naman nakaintindihan ko pa
madali man
naman,
ito.
sa baga.
Pero madali man yun at
Oo.
pinag-aralan mo na dati
Hmm.
natin sa ano,
Hindi kasi iba na
mathematics.
to, iba na ang context nito eh. Ano na ito, ng
Oh,
data analytics na baga, data analysis na,
oh,
pang data analysis na. Ito, yung dati, pang mathematics yun eh. But still, it still works here. Oo nga.
ano
Pero
na,
ayos
may
man,
iba na
oh.
siya ng konti sa ano,
Oo. Iba na kasi yung
sa
context niya, oh. Iba na
original.
kasi yung context. Nag-iiba na yung context. Pero ayos man. Lalo na din sa data objects na ko. Ito lang medyo kakaiba sa
Oh,
akin. Pero ayos man baga. Pwede na yan. So, nakaintindi man tayo kahit papaano.
okay,
Atin,
sige.
ayos mo naman. Pwede
And
na yan. Sige, sige.